Warsaw, the Polish capital, has seen plenty of war, as its name inadvertently suggests. But nowadays it's a thriving, sport-loving metropolis, with plenty of sports venues to prove it. Here are the stadiums and arenas of Warsaw. Stadion Wojska Polskiego. There has been a stadium on this site since 1930, however it was basically entirely demolished. Before, this stadium was built in the early 2010s. The only major remnant of the original stadium is the historic facade, although only a small section of it is original. I don't know which part of it, to be honest. Anyway, that's not the only interesting feature this place has to offer. As you can see, the roof that shelters most of the spectators is pointy. The point of this design is beside the point, which is also beside the point, as there are many points. There's also this unusual section of premium seating in the corner here. So it is an interesting stadium. I'll try to be more coherent from here on out. Next door we have Legia Tennis Center, which is not a jumping pillow stadium, but it says tennis in the name, I don't have to tell you. In the past it has hosted the Warsaw Open, which is the country's biggest women's tennis event. And that's fitting because at the time of recording, the highest ranked women's tennis player, Iga Świątek, is actually from Warsaw. Hala COS Tava is the site of the first ever artificial ice rink in the city. I say the site of because the rink itself has been changed since then, probably numerous times. A bigger change is what the spectators would see when they look up. They used to see the sky, and now they see a roof. That was only added in the 90s. And now it is surprisingly the largest indoor arena in the city. You'd think a city as large as this would have a bigger one, but it doesn't necessarily need it, due to a venue that we'll be talking about later on. Dozbud Arena. Although the title card down there does say that this stadium was built in 2012, there has been a ground on this site for a whole lot longer. But as you can see, before the modernization it looked dreary, sad, and a bit too reminiscent of a gulag for my liking. Now it looks a whole lot nicer, although there are some remnants of the old ground remaining. This stand, which is noticeably older than the other. Ooh, those hits of green sorta clash with the club's red and blue colour scheme. Bit jarring. Then again, the field is green, isn't it? Stadion Polonii Warszawa. This is a very old stadium, older than the original Stadion Wojska Polskiego. It's seen some things. This too has an old-fashioned facade, albeit a very different one, featuring stone columns, and there's also a fountain with a statue of a naked man. They're really ticking all of the pretentious architectural features off the list. Not so much on the inside, where there are several different seating and standing options. The two main stands consist of mostly covered seating, and for the ultras there is just some grass with some rails, but they seem to be enjoying themselves regardless. Stadion RKS Skra. You might be wondering what on earth is going on here. Well, let's start from the beginning. They broke ground on this stadium shortly before World War II, but the unfinished building was destroyed during the war, and it wasn't rebuilt and finished until 1953. The horseshoe design has remained more or less the same since then. However, the running track was originally a speedway track. The venue was forced to close in 2019 after it didn't pass a safety inspection. It's so bad that it was actually the cockroaches living here that called the inspector in the first place.
Thanks for calling.
It is set to be
1 minute,
renovated in the coming years. PGE Narodowy. This place is not only the home of the Polish national team, but is also the largest stadium in the country. Come to think of it, those two things tend to go hand in hand. It's one of the few stadiums around the world that features this particular type of retractable roof, which is made of a fabric that is attached to cables, which are almost certainly not made from fabric. And those cables not only hold up the roof, but also allow for a center hung video board, which is a common sight at a basketball arena, but a rarity at a football ground. Having a retractable roof also makes the venue more attractive for major music acts like Douglas McNugget.
You pull up in your Audi and say howdy rowdy dowdy. You run into a Saudi, he's angry and he's shouting. He shows his belly button and you see that it's an
Bit
Audi.
of a throwback there. So that's why the city doesn't desperately need a larger arena than the one we saw earlier. Stadion Hutnika Warszawa. For most of its life, this stadium was oval in nature and not purpose-built for football. Initially, there were calls for a speedway track to be built around the field because the Polish bloody love their speedway seemingly. However, the stadium was instead modernised and rectangularised just a few years ago. That rebuild included the addition of 2 stands, the only 2 stands at the ground. Unlike Dozbud Arena, I'm loving the colour combination. We've got charcoal seats and an orange roof on one side, and it's the reverse on the other side. Thankfully, both the clubs that play here have similar colours. Arena Prushkov. As is often the case with velodromes, this has a very distinctive exterior. Looks like some sort of critter. Less so inside, which is probably a good thing. It's the home of Polish cycling and basically the only venue of its type in the country. The track is made from Siberian pine, if that means anything to you, and the venue claims to have comparable acoustic qualities to the Grand Theatre of Warsaw, so you can really hear the whirring of the bicycle chains. Listen to that. Stadion Znicza Pruszków, or if you want to use the full official title, Stadion Miejskiego Klubu Sportowego Znicza Pruszków. I use the shorter form Stadion Znicza Pruszków because I wanted to save time. You see, if I said Stadion Miejskiego Klubu Sportowego Znicza Pruszków, we would be wasting time talking about the name rather than talking about the stadium itself. We're looking for efficiency, you see. Oh, and by the way, Roberto Lewandowski used to call this little place home back in the mid-2000s. And now he's a Polish great. Everybody starts off somewhere. Next door is Hala Sportowego Znicz. There is very little information about this venue out there. I mean, besides the fact that the Znicza Pruszków basketball team plays here. So I'm gonna rename it Mystery Hall. Mystery Hall is rather nice inside, as you probably know by now. I love it when there are plenty of windows at an indoor sports venue. Let there be light. So, there you have it. We saw Warsaw's stadiums by the seashore. Well, not quite. Consider subscribing if you're new around here. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a good one.